Mobius Assessment Lesson 8A, homework question number 2. For the function f of x equals x squared minus 15 divided by 3 plus 15, evaluate for each of the following: f of 1, f of 0, f of negative 1. I'm going to make that just a little bigger and maybe that'll help when viewing on YouTube. Okay, over here on the right I have our function written out. And we just want to evaluate for f of 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is identify each of the places that I have the variable, copy and paste this in, and just like before, every single time I have the variable, I'm going to replace it with parentheses so that I don't make any negative mistakes, and then just place whatever I'm substituting or evaluating for, in this case 1. So we can do this all by hand. 1 squared is 1. In fact, let's go ahead and we're going to copy and paste this so we can show each of the steps. Positive 1 squared is positive 1. And then we need to do the order of operations, which is PEMDAS. We should have written that at the beginning. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or PEMDAS as some people. This stands for making sure you get all the parentheses, exponents. Multiply and divide is the same step from left to right. Add and subtract is the same step from left to right. So multiplying and dividing, the first multiplying and dividing I have is right here. So I'm going to evaluate that part first, or next, since we already did the exponent, and copy, paste it here. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And then I need to add and subtract from left to right. So I'm going to copy this down, paste it here. 1 minus 5 is the first part I'm going to do because I go from left to right, which is negative 4. And then the last step will be, I think we'll be okay just to write that down. Negative 4 plus 15 gives me positive 11. And I can put that number here. And I would have to go through this if I wanted to do this by hand, doing each and every one of those as I've shown you, making sure that we go through the order of operations. Now, with the trick is to use Excel, and it does the order of operations for us if we type it in correctly. So I'm going to actually show you another quick trick, which is I'm just going to highlight this, Control C to copy, over here Control V to paste. Now you'll notice, some of these, it's saying, sorry, I should say, it doesn't know what to do with that because it's not typed in correctly yet. This x2 didn't type into as the exponent. To do the exponent, we do Shift 6, and that then says this is the power or the exponent for the variable or whatever we're using right there. And here, the division sign like this is not understood in Excel, so we're going to replace it with the fraction line, and everything else looks good. So that's what, whoops, we don't actually want the equal sign there because we're not calculating anything. That's our variable. So now this next part, I'm going to go ahead and copy this, Control C and Control V here, so that I can do the evaluation now. Now, every time I see this X is where I want to substitute the number that I'm trying to evaluate. And because I want to calculate, I'm going to do an equal sign, and that X only shows up here, so that's when I'm going to cell reference to the left. And when I click and drag, I want all of those also to reference, and I have all of those in there. It knows the order of operations and it will do it correctly. So pressing enter, oops, what did we do? A squared, that minus sign came through as a dash, not a subtraction. So you just fix that and then press enter. There we go. And it does match what we got by hand. So everything looks good. When I click and drag this down, and I could do the double click like I showed before, but this is only 3, so clicking and dragging isn't too intense, so we can just drag that. And these are answers for each of those. Now some of you may be thinking, wait, how did it get an 11 twice? Because I have a squared in here, in fact we could even do this right here. When I put a negative in here, and this is why when I do this by hand, always make sure I get parentheses. This negative right here squared becomes a positive because -1 times -1 is positive. And so from here on down, all of the calculations will be the same. It was just this first one, and it takes care of that. And if I were to graph this, I would actually end up with a parabola, which looks like a U. And so I would have 2 points, 1 and -1, that will be at the same height on this U. All right, so I'm going to put these in as 11, 10, and 11. And just to verify, we're going to do the how did I do and make sure we get a green check. And it all looks good, so we can move on to the next one.